Welcome back to Books Arena. Today, we're diving into a powerful and transformative book, Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. What if I told you that the biggest obstacle standing between you and your success isn't external, it's your own ego? Ego can cloud judgment, create conflicts, and keep us stuck in cycles of pride and frustration. But here's the good news. Ego is the Enemy reveals how mastering your ego is the key to unlocking true growth, humility, and lasting achievement. This book isn't just about avoiding arrogance or pride. It's about understanding the many faces of ego, from ambition to success to failure, and learning how to keep it in check at every stage of your journey. Whether you're chasing big goals, facing setbacks, or striving to become your best self, this book offers timeless wisdom on how to stay humble, resilient, and focused. So, if you're ready to discover how ego might be holding you back and how to overcome it, this summary is for you. Let's explore Ego is the Enemy and learn how to conquer the biggest battle we face, the one within ourselves. Part 1. What is ego and why it's dangerous? To understand why ego is the enemy, we first need to define what ego really is and why it can be so destructive. At its core, ego is the unhealthy belief in our own importance. It's the voice inside us that says, "I'm better than others," or "I deserve special treatment." It's the urge to seek validation, attention, and power, often at the expense of truth and growth. But ego is tricky. It rarely appears as arrogance outright. Instead, it hides behind good intentions, ambition, or confidence. It masquerades as pride, or even as a desire to succeed. Ryan Holiday explains that ego distorts our perception of reality. It convinces us that we know more than we do, that we are entitled to success, or that failure means the world is against us. This distorted self-view leads to poor decisions, damaged relationships, and missed opportunities. History is full of examples where ego caused downfall. Leaders blinded by their own importance ignored advice, made reckless choices, or alienated their allies. In our personal lives, ego can manifest as stubbornness, defensiveness, or a refusal to admit mistakes. It creates blind spots, areas where we cannot see our faults or learn from criticism. The danger of ego is that it makes us prisoners of ourselves. It traps us in a cycle where we defend our image instead of seeking truth, protect our pride instead of pursuing growth, and prioritize validation over contribution. Ryan Holiday points out that ego is often the root cause of failure, conflict, and unhappiness. It undermines our ability to build real skills and meaningful connections. On the other hand, mastering ego is essential for success and fulfillment. The book challenges us to cultivate humility not as weakness but as a strength. Humility allows us to stay teachable, embrace learning, and remain open to new ideas. It means focusing on the work, the process, and the bigger purpose rather than the ego-driven desire for recognition. Ryan Holiday also warns that ego is not something you conquer once. It's a constant battle. Ego will always try to creep back in during moments of ambition, success, or failure. Recognizing ego's influence is the first step to overcoming it. This awareness helps us pause, reflect, and choose actions that serve growth rather than pride. Ultimately, Ego is the Enemy asks a simple but profound question. Are you letting ego run your life, or are you mastering it to become the best version of yourself? Part 2. Ego in the Aspire stage. The journey to mastering ego begins early during the Aspire stage, when you're hungry, ambitious, and learning. Ryan Holiday shows us how ego can sneak in during this crucial phase, often in disguise. When you're just starting out, ego might appear as impatience, wanting recognition before you've earned it. It can show up as arrogance, believing you know enough or are entitled to success without putting in the hard work. This form of ego can block learning, because it makes you resistant to feedback or unwilling to admit you don't have all the answers. Holiday shares stories of many young talents who stumbled because they let ego inflate their self-image. Instead of focusing on mastering their craft, they chased fame, status, or praise. But ego at this stage isn't always obvious. It can masquerade as confidence, which is necessary to take risks and grow. The danger lies when confidence tips into entitlement or refusal to stay humble. To succeed in the Aspire stage, Holiday advises cultivating a mindset of a perpetual student. Be curious, absorb knowledge, and stay humble. Don't rush to prove yourself or seek applause. Instead, focus on the work, the skills, the discipline, and the learning process. He reminds us that mastery requires patience. Trying to shortcut the journey by leaning on ego will only lead to failure or burnout. Holiday also warns against comparing yourself to others, which can fuel ego-driven envy or pride. Instead, channel energy into your own growth. He tells the story of Howard Hughes, the legendary entrepreneur and aviator, who in his early years showed ambition but lacked the humility needed to learn fully. His ego drove risky decisions that eventually cost him. Similarly, many historical figures and modern leaders started with promising talent but fell because their ego clouded their judgment. The key lesson here is, don't let your ego convince you that you've arrived too soon. Stay teachable, be willing to fail, and listen to those with more experience. Ego at this stage isn't just a personal problem, it also poisons relationships. A young person blinded by ego can alienate mentors, peers, and collaborators. They might dismiss advice or demand special treatment. Holiday stresses the importance of humility to build trust and open doors. The aspire stage is about building a foundation. If ego is left unchecked, that foundation cracks early, making it harder to sustain success later. On the other hand, humility in this phase prepares you for the challenges ahead. It builds resilience and opens you up to growth. Holiday challenges readers to examine their own ambitions honestly. Are you driven by passion and purpose or by the need to prove something to yourself or others? Understanding this difference is critical. Because ambition fueled by ego often backfires, while ambition rooted in humility and service leads to lasting achievement. In summary, the aspire stage is the battlefield where ego can either be tamed or allowed to grow. It requires self-awareness, patience, and a commitment to continuous learning. Mastering ego here sets the stage for real success, not just superficial wins. Part 3, Ego in the Success Stage. Reaching success can feel like the finish line, but for many, it's actually the beginning of a new battle, managing ego in the success stage. Ryan Holiday shows that ego often swells in response to achievement, and this can become a dangerous trap. When you taste success, whether it's a promotion, fame, or a big win, ego tends to whisper, "You're the best," or "You deserve this." This mindset breeds complacency, entitlement, and a refusal to keep growing. Success can make you forget where you started, the hard work it took, and the lessons learned. Holiday highlights numerous examples of people whose egos ballooned with success and led to their downfall. They stopped listening to feedback, took reckless risks, or alienated key allies. Famous athletes, business leaders, and artists have all suffered from this trap. Instead of doubling down on humility and learning, they let pride take over. Holiday points out that ego is like a parasite on success. It feeds on praise and adulation, convincing you to focus on image over substance. This can cause you to prioritize short-term glory rather than long-term impact. One key problem is the illusion of permanence. Success feels like validation that you've made it, but life is unpredictable, and ego blinds you to future risks. Holiday urges us to remember that success is fragile, and resting on laurels invites failure. To stay grounded in success, Holiday recommends practicing continuous humility, remembering that success is often due to factors beyond just you, like mentors, luck, or timing. Keeping a student mindset even at the top, always seeking to learn and improve. Focusing on the process rather than the outcome, valuing effort and growth over trophies or status. Surrounding yourself with honest people who will challenge your ego and hold you accountable. Holiday also warns about the dangers of entitlement, the belief that success means you deserve special treatment or that rules don't apply to you. Entitlement alienates colleagues and blinds you to weaknesses. It's a silent killer of careers and relationships. Another ego trap in success is the fear of failure. Ego convinces you to protect your image, avoid risks, and only play it safe. This fear stifles innovation and growth. Holiday encourages embracing failure as a learning tool, but this requires ego to be in check. The success stage can be a lonely place if ego takes control. People may flatter you or avoid honest conversations, leaving you blind to real problems. Holiday stresses cultivating genuine relationships based on trust and humility to avoid this isolation. In his examples, leaders who mastered ego in success stayed curious, generous, and connected. They understood that their achievements were not the end but a responsibility. They kept their feet on the ground and eyes on the next challenge. In summary, ego in the success stage is a test of character. It's the battle between pride and humility, complacency and growth. Mastering ego here means remembering your roots, staying hungry to learn, and leading with integrity. It's not about denying success but about carrying it with grace. Holiday's message is clear: the greater your success, the bigger the ego challenge. But overcoming ego in success sets the stage for sustainable achievement and true fulfillment. Part 4, Ego in the Failure Stage. If ego can be dangerous during ambition and success, It's even more toxic during failure. In this stage, ego becomes a wall blocking growth, hiding truth, and making the pain of defeat even worse. Ryan Holiday shows that ego doesn't just inflate when we win. It also lashes out when we lose. When things fall apart, whether it's losing a job, a failed project, or public criticism, ego rushes to protect us. It whispers, "It wasn't your fault," or "They don't understand your greatness." But this protective instinct becomes dangerous. Instead of learning from mistakes, ego convinces us to play the victim or blame others. It feeds denial, resentment, and bitterness. Holiday reminds us that failure is not the enemy, ego is. Because failure is a natural part of life. It's how we grow. But ego turns failure into something shameful, unbearable, or even identity-crushing. Some people, when they fail, spiral into depression, anger, or vengeance, not because of the failure itself, but because ego can't accept the reality. Holiday says, "It's not failure that breaks us, it's the shame our ego forces us to feel about failure." He shares stories of once successful people who let ego fuel their downfall even further. Instead of reflecting, they tried to cover up, double down, or prove themselves right and lost even more. But others, who embraced humility during failure, used it as a turning point. They examined what went wrong, accepted their flaws, and began rebuilding from a stronger foundation. The lesson is clear: failure is inevitable, but how we respond is a choice. Ego wants to protect us from discomfort, but growth lives in discomfort. Holiday encourages us to ask difficult questions during failure. What part did I play in this? What can I learn? What must I do differently? These questions aren't easy. They bruise the ego. But they unlock the wisdom needed for real change. Another trap during failure is comparison. Ego might say, "Look at everyone else, they're succeeding while I'm falling behind." But this thinking is toxic. Holiday warns us not to judge our progress by others' highlights. Everyone faces setbacks. The key is to focus inward on self-improvement, not self-pity. Holiday also emphasizes resilience, the ability to bounce back stronger, not bitter. And resilience is impossible if ego dominates the mind. To be resilient, we must accept reality without flinching. We must own our mistakes without ego getting defensive. And we must detach our identity from outcomes. One of the most powerful tools during failure is Stoicism, the ancient philosophy of staying calm, grounded, and rational in the face of adversity. Holiday draws heavily on Stoic wisdom throughout the book. He reminds us, we don't control what happens. We control how we respond. Ego wants us to control everything, to bend the world to our will. But humility accepts the limits of control, and focuses on discipline, effort, and attitude. Another strategy to defeat ego in failure is service. Instead of turning inward and nursing wounds, we should turn outward, help others, contribute, and stay useful. It shifts focus away from ego and back to purpose. It reminds us that we're not alone and that life goes on, with or without our pride. In the end, the failure stage is perhaps the most important. It reveals who we really are. Will we let ego keep us stuck, or will we allow failure to transform us? Ryan Holiday shows us that failure, approached with humility, becomes the greatest teacher. Ego tries to hide the lesson, but truth sets us free. Failure can break you. Or it can remake you. The choice is yours. Part 5, The Power of Purpose Over Passion. In this part of Ego is the Enemy, Ryan Holiday dismantles one of the most glorified modern ideas, the obsession with passion. We often hear people say, "Follow your passion," as if it's the key to success. But Holiday warns, unchecked passion is one of ego's favorite disguises. It can feel empowering, motivating, even noble, but passion, when not grounded in purpose or discipline, leads many people astray. It burns hot, but it burns out quickly. Holiday argues that what truly sustains us, especially in the face of challenges, is not passion, but purpose. Passion is about emotions, it's impulsive and often selfish. Purpose, on the other hand, is about direction, it's steady, rational, and grounded in something bigger than yourself. He gives the example of people who launch businesses or pursue creative work based solely on excitement and energy, but without patience or long-term thinking. When things get hard, as they always do, passion fades, and ego gets frustrated. But those who are driven by purpose are different. They can endure boredom, obstacles, and criticism because their goal isn't about self-glory, it's about contributing something meaningful. Holiday writes, "Purpose is about what you're here to do. Passion is about what you want to feel." This is a subtle but powerful distinction. Ego loves passion because it's tied to image and identity. It says, I'm special. I'm meant for greatness. But purpose humbles us. It says, there's work to do. Let me serve that mission. Holiday shares stories of people who chased passion and ended up disappointed, because they mistook temporary motivation for deep commitment. He contrasts this with disciplined performers, artists, and thinkers who kept showing up not because they always felt inspired, but because they had a purpose to fulfill. Another danger of passion is that it often makes people blind to flaws in their plan. They become so emotionally attached to an idea that they ignore reality. They overestimate their abilities, underestimate challenges, and resist feedback, all symptoms of ego. Purpose, however, is open-eyed. It embraces feedback, adapts to change, and is willing to take the long road. Holiday also notes that ego often confuses motion with progress. A passionate person might work frantically long hours, non-stop hustle, but without real effectiveness. It's not about how hard you go, it's about what direction you're headed in. Purpose provides that direction. Holiday urges us to take a hard look at our motivations. Are we chasing passion because it makes us feel important? Are we addicted to praise, recognition, or the drama of the grind? Or are we grounded in a clear mission that's not about ego, but about something deeper? He explains that true greatness is often quiet. It doesn't shout, look at me. It simply gets to work. The most effective leaders, creators, and professionals operate from a deep internal compass. They don't need to be hyped up, and they don't collapse when things get tough. They are committed not because they're passionate in the moment but because they are aligned with their purpose. Holiday also emphasizes the importance of discipline over emotion. Ego loves highs and hates lows. It rides the emotional roller coaster and makes decisions based on temporary feelings. Purpose, by contrast, thrives on consistency. You show up even when you don't feel like it. You persist even when things aren't going your way. This steady, humble approach beats fiery passion every time. He reminds us that many of history's greatest achievements weren't made by the loudest or most passionate people. They were made by those who quietly, patiently, and relentlessly followed their purpose. So what's the takeaway? Don't let ego wrap itself in the attractive language of passion. Ask yourself, what am I really trying to accomplish? Who am I serving, myself, or something bigger? Am I chasing a feeling, or following a mission? When we align our actions with purpose instead of ego-driven passion, we become calmer, more focused, and far more resilient. Passion fades. Purpose endures. In a world that glorifies the loud and the proud, Ryan Holiday reminds us to take the quieter, more powerful path. Choose purpose. Part 6, Becoming a Student Always. One of the most powerful antidotes to ego, according to Ryan Holiday, is adopting the mindset of a lifelong student. This idea may sound simple, even obvious, but its implications are profound, especially in a world where ego constantly tempts us to pretend we already know everything. In this part of Ego is the Enemy, Holiday challenges us to step down from the pedestal ego builds and instead embrace the humility of always being a learner, no matter how experienced, talented, or successful we become. Ego whispers, you've made it. But wisdom says, you're just getting started. Holiday points out that many people stop growing not because they lack talent or intelligence but because their ego won't let them admit they still have a lot to learn. The ego resists mentorship, rejects feedback, and is threatened by those who know more. Why? Because to the ego, not knowing feels like weakness. But in reality, the willingness to learn is strength. Holiday offers numerous examples of great thinkers, leaders, and creators who remained curious and humble throughout their lives. They weren't afraid to say I don't know. They didn't act like they were the smartest in the room even when they were. Take someone like Socrates, the ancient Greek philosopher. His greatest strength wasn't how much he claimed to know, it was that he admitted how much he didn't know. This mindset kept him asking questions, refining ideas, and ultimately shaping the foundation of Western philosophy. Holiday reminds us that staying a student doesn't mean you lack confidence, it means you have the clarity to know that knowledge is infinite, and growth is never finished. Compare this to ego-driven individuals who believe they've graduated from learning. They stop reading. They stop listening. They assume they have all the answers. And as a result, they slowly become irrelevant, outdated, and ineffective. Another powerful point Holiday makes is that ego makes us fragile. If your identity is built on being the expert or the smartest, then any new information that challenges that image becomes a threat. That's why people with big egos often react defensively to criticism or correction, because their pride depends on always being right. But when you adopt a student mindset, you free yourself from that burden. Being wrong isn't a personal attack, it's just another opportunity to learn. Holiday urges us to seek mentorship, to actively surround ourselves with people who know more than we do, and who are willing to teach us. Too often, ego tells us we don't need help. That asking questions makes us look weak. But the truth is, all high achievers had someone who showed them the way. Michael Jordan had a coach. Steve Jobs had mentors. Even Einstein built on the ideas of scientists before him. Ego wants us to be the lone genius. The student mindset knows that no one succeeds alone. Holiday also warns against surrounding ourselves with yes people, those who feed our ego and always agree with us. These people may feel good to be around, but they don't challenge us. They don't help us grow. A real student seeks people who tell the truth, who hold up a mirror, and who push them to get better. In addition, Holiday highlights the value of deliberate practice. Being a student isn't just about being curious, it's about consistently working to improve your craft. That means showing up every day, doing the unglamorous work, and being open to correction. Ego avoids this, it wants shortcuts, praise, and instant results. But real mastery comes through repetition, humility, and effort. Another key element of the student mindset is patience. Ego wants to race to the top to get recognized fast. But a student is focused on learning deeply, not looking good quickly. Holiday shares the idea of playing the long game. That means focusing not on applause today, but on building excellence that lasts. In today's social media-driven world, this is more important than ever. Ego wants followers, likes, and applause. The student wants knowledge, experience, and progress. Ryan Holiday challenges us to be okay with being unknown, with being the apprentice, with putting in the work quietly. Because over time, students surpass the ego-driven performers who burn out chasing glory. So what's the takeaway? No matter how successful you become, stay a student. Be curious. Be humble. Be teachable. Ask questions. Read widely. Listen more than you speak. Recognize that the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. In a world full of people trying to act like they have it all figured out, the lifelong learner becomes truly powerful. Ego thinks it already knows. The student is always becoming. Part 7, Silence, Stillness, and the Death of Ego. As Ego is the enemy comes to a close, Ryan Holiday invites us to reflect on a powerful truth: ego doesn't die in a dramatic battle. It fades quietly, in moments of silence, humility, and stillness. In this final section, Holiday explores how the most powerful people, the ones who make real, lasting impact, are often the quietest. They don't chase attention. They don't constantly talk about themselves. They don't need validation from the crowd. Because they've learned that true strength is calm, grounded, and inwardly directed. Ego thrives on noise. It needs to announce itself constantly, to show off, to compare, to react. But the antidote to this noise is stillness, the practice of calming the inner storm. Holiday urges us to cultivate silence, not just the absence of sound, but the absence of distraction and ego-driven thoughts. In a world that rewards loudness, being still becomes a form of rebellion. A form of power. He explains that many great leaders, thinkers, and creators made their most important decisions not in chaos, but in solitude. Take Abraham Lincoln, for example. During the height of the Civil War, with the fate of the nation resting on his shoulders, Lincoln would retreat to quiet walks and reading. He resisted impulsive action. He found clarity not in ego-fueled urgency, but in reflection. Or Winston Churchill, who famously painted in silence to escape the mental noise of war and politics. Or Bill Belichick, one of the most successful coaches in NFL history, who avoids interviews and stays far from the spotlight, allowing results to speak for themselves. These individuals teach us that ego loves attention, but excellence thrives in stillness. Holiday points out that ego makes us reactive. It pulls us into arguments. It takes everything personally. It constantly scans for insults, slights, and comparisons. Stillness helps us zoom out. It helps us pause, respond instead of react, and see the bigger picture. He writes, "It's not about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less." And silence helps us do that. Ego creates chaos. It makes us addicted to doing, to chasing, to proving, to winning. But what if the most productive thing we could do is pause? Holiday encourages us to seek space between stimulus and response. To train ourselves not to react immediately, but to sit with discomfort, to observe, and then to act with intention. In a digital world filled with endless alerts, opinions, and comparisons, this is radical. Silence is where growth happens. It's where we check in with our true selves beneath the performance, beneath the image, beneath the ego. Holiday also brings up the importance of detachment. Ego is always trying to attach itself to identity. I am this job title. I am this achievement. I am this follower count. But what happens when we lose those things? The ego crumbles. We feel lost. Stillness teaches us to let go. We are not our achievements. We are not our reputation. We are not even our failures. We are the awareness behind all of it, the calm observer who keeps growing, regardless of circumstance. This insight is deeply freeing. It allows us to move through life with less fear and more courage. To try big things without being paralyzed by the fear of failure because our worth is no longer tied to outcomes. Holiday reminds us, ego loves drama. It wants to be at the center of everything. But the most successful and fulfilled people aren't caught up in drama. They're focused, quiet, and deliberate. They're not trying to impress anyone. They're just doing the work. And that's where real peace and real power come from. Holiday also encourages us to practice gratitude and reflection as ways to stay grounded. Ego says, I deserve more. Gratitude says, what I have is already enough. Ego says, look what I did. Reflection says, who helped me? What did I learn? How can I improve? By regularly stepping back and asking these kinds of questions, we keep ego in check. The final message is this. You won't wake up one day and suddenly have no ego. It's a constant, daily practice. It requires awareness, discipline, and humility. It requires choosing purpose over pride. Learning over knowing. Stillness over noise. Service over spotlight. And most of all, it requires remembering that the enemy isn't out there, it's in here. Ego isn't something we defeat once. It's something we quiet daily, through our actions, our choices, and our attitude. So if you want to grow, lead, create, and live with more peace, don't try to be important. Try to be useful. Don't try to be seen. Try to be still. Because ego may be loud but truth is quiet. And in that quiet, we find our strength. And that brings us to the end of Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. If there's one core lesson from this powerful book, it's this. Ego holds us back far more than we realize. It whispers lies that we're better than others, that we don't need help, that we deserve more, and that our worth is tied to achievements. But real greatness doesn't come from ego. It comes from humility. From discipline. From self-awareness. From the quiet confidence to keep learning, keep serving, and keep growing even when no one's watching. Ryan Holiday reminds us that ego shows up in 3 key stages of life. When we aspire, ego tells us to rush to recognition instead of mastering our craft. When we succeed, ego makes us believe we're invincible, above advice, and beyond mistakes. When we fail, ego makes it harder to rise again because it's too proud to admit defeat and begin anew. But at each stage, we have a choice. We can let ego lead. Or we can choose purpose, humility, and service. The message of this book is not about thinking less of yourself. It's about thinking of yourself less so you can focus on the work, the mission, and the long game. So, as you move forward in your career, relationships, goals, and life, remember. Be the student, not the master. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Seek progress, not applause. And when in doubt, choose stillness over noise. Because ego is not just the enemy of success, it's the enemy of peace, learning, connection, and meaning. And the sooner we quiet that inner voice of pride, the sooner we find our true strength. Thank you for listening to the summary on Books Arena. If you found this helpful, inspiring, or thought-provoking, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth summaries of life-changing books delivered in calm, thoughtful audio that's easy to follow and perfect for reflection. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing, and remember the biggest battle is often the one within. In the middle of a loud and chaotic office, where phones ring nonstop and deadlines loom like storm clouds, it is easy to forget that work is not meant to drain life from us. For many people, the workplace becomes a source of stress, anxiety, and even conflict. We begin each day with a cup of coffee and a to-do list, but as the hours pass, frustrations mount, tempers flare, and we find ourselves overwhelmed by things that, in hindsight, are not truly important. It is in this high-pressure atmosphere that Richard Carlson's message comes as a breath of fresh air. Richard Carlson, the author of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work, was not just a psychologist or a self-help writer, he was a teacher of peace in an impatient world. Known best for his best-selling book Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and It's All Small Stuff, Carlson spent his career helping people see that most of life's irritations are just that small stuff. In this particular book, he brings that same philosophy into the workplace, a setting where calmness and clarity are often the first casualties of a busy day. Carlson's message is simple, but deeply powerful. He teaches us that our experience at work is not shaped solely by what happens to us, but by how we respond to it. The coworker who talks too loudly on the phone, the boss who overlooks your efforts, the email that rubs you the wrong way, these are everyday workplace events. But the stress they cause comes not from the events themselves, but from the meaning we attach to them and the way we choose to respond. Consider a common scenario. A young professional, driven and dedicated, finds herself growing resentful because her manager seems to favor a colleague. Every meeting becomes a battle in her mind. Every success of the colleague feels like a personal failure. Her work suffers, her mood darkens, and she begins to dread each morning. Yet, from the outside, nothing substantial has changed. The real shift has happened inside her. Carlson would say she is sweating the small stuff. This book does not suggest that problems at work are imaginary or that people should simply smile through genuine challenges. Rather, it teaches how to distinguish between what truly deserves your energy and what can be released with a deep breath and a shift in perspective. Through short, insightful chapters, Carlson shows how most of what we stress over, missed deadlines, miscommunications, rude emails, unfair feedback, is not worth the emotional toll we give it. The wisdom in Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work is not abstract or philosophical. It is deeply practical. Carlson offers tools and reminders that you can use in real situations. He reminds you to pause before reacting, to listen more than you speak, to avoid jumping to conclusions, and to remember that everyone is human, even the colleague who tests your patience or the boss who seems unreasonable. These lessons are not about becoming passive. They are about becoming resilient, thoughtful, and grounded. The relevance of this book has only grown with time. Today's workplaces are more complex than ever. There are tight schedules, endless virtual meetings, rapid changes in roles, and increased demands for performance. The line between work and personal life has blurred, especially with remote jobs. In such a fast-moving environment, many people feel they are constantly running, constantly reacting, and constantly one small issue away from burnout. Carlson's voice, in contrast, is calm and centered. He urges you to slow down. He reminds you that peace is possible, even during your busiest day. He explains that being productive does not mean being frantic, and being successful does not require sacrificing your inner well-being. Take, for example, the story of a seasoned project manager in a major technology company. She was skilled and respected, but she often left work feeling exhausted and emotionally drained. Every unexpected request, every complaint from a client, every small error by her team felt like a crisis. After reading Carlson's book, she began to make simple changes. She took a few minutes each morning to breathe and ground herself before checking her emails. She began choosing not to respond immediately to every irritation. Slowly, she noticed a change. She still faced the same challenges, but they no longer controlled her peace of mind. That is the power of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work. It does not promise to eliminate all difficulties. Instead, it offers a new lens through which to view them. It helps you build the kind of mental and emotional resilience that turns a stressful workday into a manageable one, and a difficult week into a period of learning and growth. As we begin this journey through the insights of Richard Carlson, remember this: you have more control over your experience of work than you think. You cannot always change your job, your boss, or your colleagues. But you can change how you show up each day. You can learn to stay calm when things get hectic. You can learn to be kind, even when others are not. And you can learn to let go of the small stuff that steals your energy and joy. In the following sections, we will explore key themes from the book: perspective, ego, priorities, compassion, and peace. Through stories, real-life examples, and Carlson's timeless advice, you will discover how to transform the way you work without changing your job or career path. Welcome to Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work, presented by Books Arena. Let us begin. Part 1, Changing Your Perspective at Work. In a towering office building in downtown Chicago, a financial analyst named Priya starts her Monday morning like many others do by opening her overflowing inbox. The first email is a request to revise a report she submitted last week. The tone is slightly curt. The second message contains a meeting invite for a project she was not consulted about. Then comes a message from a colleague asking about a task they could have easily completed themselves. Within just 15 minutes, Priya feels disrespected, overlooked, and burdened. Her heart rate increases, her shoulders tense, and the entire week already feels ruined. This is the moment Richard Carlson speaks directly to. In Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work, he explains that how we perceive events at work has more impact on our stress levels than the events themselves. Carlson's first lesson is clear: we must learn to change our perspective. It is not always the workload that is the problem. It is the mental narrative we create around it. Carlson believed that most of our workplace stress does not come from major events. It comes from small, daily annoyances that we allow to build into mountains. A delayed reply from a manager, a coworker who talks too loudly, a printer that stops working right before a presentation — none of these are life-altering. But when we react emotionally, these small things can dominate our mood, disrupt our focus, and even affect our relationships. Changing your perspective begins with recognizing that not everything requires a strong emotional response. Think about how much energy we spend being offended or irritated. The colleague who interrupts you may not mean any harm. The manager who seems short in an email might just be tired. Carlson reminds us that assuming positive intent, or at least giving others the benefit of the doubt, can free us from unnecessary emotional strain. Let us consider the story of Jason, a customer service representative in a retail company. Every day, he faced customers who were angry, demanding, and at times even insulting. At first, Jason took every complaint personally. He would go home angry and exhausted. Over time, he began to apply one of Carlson's key insights: people do what they do, and it does not have to ruin your day. Jason started imagining that each frustrated caller was just having a bad day, not attacking him personally. He listened without reacting, spoke calmly, and stopped absorbing the emotional baggage of others. His days improved, not because his customers changed, but because he did. Carlson also invites us to question the stories we tell ourselves. When something happens at work, our minds often race to worst-case scenarios. A cryptic message from a supervisor becomes a sign that we are in trouble. Being left out of a meeting means we are no longer valued. But most of the time, these interpretations are wrong. By choosing not to jump to conclusions, we protect our peace of mind. A practical example comes from Susan, a marketing coordinator in a mid-sized firm. One afternoon, she presented her campaign ideas to the senior team. She expected enthusiasm, but the room was quiet. For days, she replayed the meeting in her head, convinced she had failed. But when her supervisor finally spoke to her, he praised her creativity and explained that the team had been silent only because they were considering how to implement her ideas. The emotional roller coaster she experienced was entirely self-generated. Carlson's advice could have saved her days of needless worry: do not sweat the silence, give space for understanding to unfold. Changing perspective also involves learning to pause. Often, we react to small annoyances without thinking. Someone takes credit for our idea, and we fire back. A colleague makes a sarcastic comment, and we hold a grudge. But a pause, just a few seconds to breathe, reflect, and choose a response can transform the moment. This pause is not weakness. It is strength. One of Carlson's most powerful reminders is this: you can be right, or you can be at peace. In many workplace conflicts, we fight for the last word, the recognition, the victory in a small debate. But what do we gain? Often, the stress and tension are not worth the outcome. Perspective means understanding that letting go is not giving up, it is choosing what matters more. Another example is from a software development team working on a tight deadline. Two developers, Ravi and Lila, disagreed on a coding approach. The disagreement escalated, and their collaboration broke down. Ravi, after reflecting on Carlson's principles, decided to step back. He told Lila he was willing to try her approach first and re-evaluate after testing. This small gesture shifted the tone of their relationship. Lila responded with openness, and they found a better solution together. The project succeeded, not because one person won, but because someone chose peace over pride. At its core, Carlson's message in this part of the book is simple but profound: your peace at work is determined not by your environment, but by your perception of it. The moment you stop letting small things control your emotions, you reclaim your sense of control and well-being. As we continue our journey through Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work on Books Arena, keep this thought in mind: stress often begins in the mind, not the job description. By choosing calm over chaos, and understanding over assumption, you take the first step toward a workplace experience that is both productive and peaceful. In the next part, we will explore how letting go of ego and the need to control everything can transform your workday and your relationships. Part 2, Letting Go of the Ego and Control. Imagine a mid-level manager named Arun working in a well-known multinational company. He is smart, organized, and passionate about delivering the best results. However, he finds himself constantly frustrated. His team does not follow instructions exactly the way he wants, his peers do not always agree with his methods, and his superiors sometimes take decisions without consulting him. Every time something does not go his way, Arun feels slighted or disrespected. Over time, this emotional tension begins to affect his health, relationships, and ability to enjoy his work. What Arun does not realize is that it is not the job that is wearing him down. It is his ego and his desire to control everything. In Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work, Richard Carlson explores this very human tendency. The need to be right, to be seen, and to be in control can create enormous stress in our professional lives. Carlson teaches that letting go of ego is not about giving up your value, it is about protecting your peace. Many people tie their self-worth to their performance at work. A delayed response from a boss feels like rejection. A coworker's success feels like competition. A minor criticism feels like a personal attack. When the ego is in charge, even neutral or ordinary situations begin to feel threatening. Carlson emphasizes that ego thrives on conflict and comparison. It wants to win, to prove, to dominate. And in the workplace, this shows up in subtle ways. It is the impulse to correct someone in a meeting just to show that you know better. It is the frustration you feel when someone else is praised for an idea you had first. It is the refusal to delegate because you believe no one else can do it as well as you can. These are everyday habits that may seem small but accumulate into stress, isolation, and burnout. Let us consider the story of Mira, an experienced creative director at an advertising agency. She was known for her attention to detail and high standards. But her team found it difficult to work with her. She would redo their work, micromanage every project, and take over presentations. Her intentions were good, she wanted everything to be excellent, but her need for control left her team feeling untrusted and demotivated. When Mira read Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work, one line struck her deeply: sometimes, the best thing you can do is let others shine. She began making conscious changes. Instead of correcting every slide, she asked team members to explain their design choices. Instead of jumping in during meetings, she allowed others to lead. Slowly, not only did her team improve, but she also felt a surprising sense of relief. Letting go of control had not made her irrelevant, it had made her more effective and respected. Carlson encourages us to ask a powerful question: is it more important to be in control, or to create peace and growth? Many times, we hold on tightly to roles, rules, or expectations because we believe that only we can ensure success. But in doing so, we often block the natural flow of collaboration and creativity. Let us look at another example. During a corporate merger, two departments had to integrate under one leadership. The department heads, Neeraj and Suman, had very different working styles. Neeraj valued structure and efficiency, while Suman was more flexible and people-oriented. At first, their meetings were tense. Each wanted their system to dominate. Eventually, Neeraj realized that their clash was more about ego than logic. He invited Suman to co-design a new workflow instead of choosing one over the other. This act of humility opened a door to dialogue, and they created a hybrid model that outperformed both original systems. Letting go of ego also means not taking everything personally. Not every comment is a judgment. Not every decision is about you. Workplaces are filled with people, each dealing with their own challenges. When we stop assuming that every slight is deliberate, we free ourselves from needless resentment. Carlson reminds us, people act the way they act, not because of you, but because of them. This simple truth can dissolve hours of overthinking. Another powerful shift comes from trusting others. Many professionals, especially high achievers, struggle with delegation. They believe it is easier to do things themselves than to explain, wait, or risk imperfection. But by trying to control everything, they not only exhaust themselves, they also rob others of the chance to grow. Carlson suggests that perfectionism is often just fear in disguise, and that true leadership is not about doing more but about empowering others to do well. Consider the case of Radhika, a senior HR consultant. She prided herself on planning flawless corporate events. Every detail was in her hands. One day, due to a health emergency, she had to step away and leave the planning to a junior associate. To her surprise, the event went smoothly, and some guests even appreciated the fresh energy brought by the new team member. That moment changed Radhika's leadership style forever. She learned that excellence could be shared and that letting go could be liberating. Richard Carlson does not suggest that we stop caring about results or accept mediocrity. Rather, he invites us to shift from control to collaboration, from ego to awareness, from fear to trust. The goal is not to win every argument or prove every point, but to build a life and a workplace where peace, creativity, and mutual respect can thrive. As we continue our journey through Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work, remember this truth: you do not have to control everything to lead, and you do not have to be right to be respected. The most powerful professionals are not those who command every detail but those who create space for others to contribute and for themselves to breathe. In the next part, we will explore how to focus on what truly matters in your work life and avoid being pulled into distractions and drama. Part 3, Focusing on What Truly Matters. In the heart of Mumbai's financial district, Nikhil works as a team lead in a growing startup. His calendar is packed with back-to-back meetings, and he is constantly checking his phone between tasks. His team often seeks his input, clients keep him updated every hour, and internal updates flood his inbox. At the end of each day, he feels mentally drained but also strangely unfulfilled. Despite being busy from morning to evening, Nikhil realizes that he has not completed any meaningful task in weeks. This is a familiar situation for many professionals today. In Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work, Richard Carlson calls attention to this trap of constant busyness. He explains that many people confuse being active with being effective. The real question is not how much you are doing, but what you are choosing to focus on. If your day is filled with shallow tasks, interruptions, and office politics, you may be working hard but not making progress where it truly matters. Carlson encourages readers to clarify what is essential. Every workplace has a mix of tasks, some critical, others routine. Some are valuable, and others are distractions disguised as obligations. Professionals who succeed in both performance and peace are those who learn to identify their priorities and gently let go of the rest. Let us consider the story of Ananya, a school administrator at a reputed private institution. She was constantly overwhelmed responding to dozens of emails, coordinating events, and handling minor complaints. She was efficient, but always tired. After reading Carlson's book, she decided to implement one simple idea: identify the 3 most important things she could do each day to move the school forward. She began each morning by writing down those 3 priorities. Everything else was scheduled around them or delegated. Within weeks, she felt a shift. She had more energy, greater satisfaction, and, most importantly, a sense of purpose. Carlson also discusses the importance of saying no, a skill many professionals struggle with. The desire to be liked, seen as cooperative, or remain visible often leads people to say yes to every request. But each yes comes at a cost. When you agree to something that is not aligned with your role or goals, you are saying no to time, focus, and mental peace. Learning to say no politely but firmly is one of the most powerful habits for professional clarity. Take the case of Deepak, an IT consultant who was respected in his company but also known for being a yes man. He accepted every last-minute assignment and joined every meeting he was invited to, even if he was not required. His productivity began to decline, and his stress increased. After reflecting on Carlson's insights, Deepak started evaluating each request through a simple question: is this helping me do my job better, or is it just keeping me busy? This shift allowed him to focus on his core work, improve his performance, and restore his peace of mind. Another major distraction in the workplace is drama, gossip, office politics, personal conflicts, and power games. Carlson explains that these often feel urgent but are rarely important. Getting involved in such matters not only wastes time but also poisons the emotional atmosphere of work. Avoiding drama does not mean avoiding people. It means choosing meaningful connection over emotional entanglement. Consider Shruti, a content strategist in a media company. She was known for her storytelling skills but was often dragged into team conflicts. One coworker would constantly complain about others, trying to gain sympathy. Initially, Shruti would listen and get involved. But over time, she noticed that these conversations left her feeling drained and distracted. Following Carlson's advice, she started excusing herself from such discussions, redirecting the conversation to work, or simply staying neutral. Soon, she found herself with more time, more focus, and fewer emotional ups and downs. Carlson also advises professionals to avoid perfectionism when it does not serve the goal. Many people spend enormous time refining something that is already good enough. This obsession with flawless results may seem like a strength, but it often leads to missed deadlines, burnout, and delayed progress. The key is to know when excellence is needed and when efficiency is more important. For example, Ramesh, a corporate trainer, would spend hours polishing his slides, adjusting fonts, and reorganizing content, even after the message was clear and effective. This perfectionism often meant he had to work late nights and redo materials that were already good. After adopting Carlson's mindset, he began setting clear limits, a time block to finish the slide deck, then move on. His work quality remained high, but his energy levels and free time improved dramatically. One of Carlson's most practical suggestions is to create blocks of uninterrupted time for your most important work. He recommends treating these periods as sacred. Turn off notifications, put your phone away, and let your colleagues know that you are in focus mode. These blocks, even if just 30 to 60 minutes a day, can dramatically increase productivity and reduce stress. This technique was life-changing for Tara, a product manager in a fast-paced tech company. She began reserving the first hour of each day for strategic planning and deep work. She protected this time by putting up a note on her desk and setting her phone on silent. During this period, she tackled the most mentally demanding tasks. The rest of her day became smoother, and her confidence soared. In the end, Carlson's message in this part of the book is not about working harder but working smarter and with intention. He urges readers to stop chasing every task, every email, and every minor demand. Instead, he encourages us to identify what truly moves the needle and focus there. Peace and productivity are not at odds. In fact, they often grow together when we stop wasting our energy on things that do not matter. As you reflect on this part of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work, ask yourself, what are the few things I do that create the most value? What can I stop doing to make space for what matters most? In the next part, we will explore how kindness and compassion in the workplace are not signs of weakness, but powerful forces that build stronger teams, better relationships, and a more fulfilling career. Part 4, Cultivating Compassion and Team Harmony. In a busy marketing agency in London, Sarah was known for her sharp mind and high standards. She expected excellence from her team and was often quick to point out mistakes. While her intentions were good, the atmosphere in the office was tense. Team members hesitated to ask questions or share ideas freely. Meetings were often filled with criticism, and collaboration suffered. Sarah believed that being tough was necessary to succeed, but over time, she began to notice burnout and low morale among her colleagues. Richard Carlson's Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work offers a different perspective, one that might have helped Sarah realize the power of compassion and kindness in the workplace. Carlson shows that being kind is not about being soft or letting others take advantage. Instead, it is about creating an environment where people feel valued, safe, and motivated to contribute their best. Compassion at work is a skill that can be cultivated intentionally. It starts with simple actions, listening attentively, acknowledging others' efforts, offering help without being asked, and choosing patience over judgment. These small acts can have a ripple effect, improving communication, trust, and ultimately, productivity. Consider the story of James, a team leader at a software company. One of his junior developers, Maya, was struggling with a challenging project and feeling overwhelmed. Instead of reprimanding her for missed deadlines, James took time to understand her challenges. He offered additional resources and adjusted timelines to reduce pressure. This act of empathy not only helped Maya regain confidence but also fostered loyalty and commitment. James learned that kindness does not slow down progress, it accelerates it. Carlson also stresses that compassion begins with self-kindness. Often, people are their own harshest critics at work. They beat themselves up for mistakes, worry about not being good enough, or push themselves beyond healthy limits. This internal stress affects performance and well-being. Practicing self-compassion means treating yourself with the same patience and understanding you would offer a friend. It means recognizing that errors are part of growth, and that your worth is not tied solely to your achievements. Take the example of Anita, a graphic designer who frequently stayed late to perfect her projects. She was critical of every flaw and feared failure. After reading Carlson's book, Anita started to give herself permission to do her best without demanding perfection. She took breaks, accepted constructive feedback without personalizing it, and celebrated small successes. This shift improved her creativity and joy at work. Team harmony also depends on creating a culture of respect and inclusivity. Carlson advises leaders and colleagues alike to avoid gossip, negative judgments, and cliques. Instead, fostering open communication, encouraging diverse opinions, and recognizing contributions helps build a strong, united team. Respect does not mean agreement on everything, it means valuing others' perspectives and treating everyone with dignity. In a multinational corporation, a manager named Carlos faced challenges integrating a diverse team with members from different cultural backgrounds. Instead of imposing his style, he invited team members to share their customs, work preferences, and communication styles. This openness created mutual understanding and respect. Team meetings became more collaborative, conflicts decreased, and performance improved. Carlos's leadership showed that compassion and cultural sensitivity are critical for modern teamwork. Another essential aspect Carlson highlights is forgiveness. In any workplace, mistakes and misunderstandings are inevitable. Holding grudges or replaying conflicts drains energy and poisons relationships. Choosing to forgive, not forgetting, but letting go of resentment, frees people to move forward and focus on shared goals. For example, Priya, a sales executive, had a falling out with a colleague over a project misunderstanding. For weeks, their interactions were cold and tense, affecting the entire team. After some reflection inspired by Carlson's insights, Priya decided to initiate a conversation. They cleared up the misunderstanding and agreed to work together respectfully. This act of forgiveness restored harmony and improved the team's results. Cultivating compassion also means recognizing the humanity in everyone. Everyone faces challenges, insecurities, and pressures. By remembering this, you can approach difficult interactions with empathy rather than frustration. Carlson writes, "Everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." Keeping this in mind helps reduce judgment and increases patience. This approach transforms workplaces from battlegrounds into communities. It encourages cooperation over competition and support over suspicion. When kindness becomes a norm, people feel safer to express ideas, take risks, and innovate. In conclusion, Carlson's message in this part of the book is that compassion and kindness are not optional extras, they are foundational to success and satisfaction at work. They build trust, reduce conflict, and enhance well-being. Most importantly, they make work a place where people want to be. As you move forward with the insights from Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work, ask yourself, how can I show more kindness today? How can I create harmony in my team? How can I be gentle with myself during stressful times? In the next part, we will explore how to create peace in the busiest environments by slowing down, practicing mindfulness, and finding calm amid chaos. Part 5, Creating Peace in a Busy Environment. In the bustling city of New York, where the pace never slows and deadlines seem to multiply endlessly, Emily works as a senior editor at a major publishing house. Her days are filled with constant interruptions, phone calls, emails, meetings, and last-minute changes. The pressure to deliver quickly and perfectly is relentless. Yet, amid this chaos, Emily has learned a secret that has transformed her experience: the ability to create peace within herself, regardless of external circumstances. Richard Carlson, in Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work, emphasizes that peace is not the absence of activity or challenges. Rather, it is a state of mind that can be cultivated even in the busiest environments. Carlson's teachings remind us that slowing down, pausing, and practicing mindfulness are not luxuries reserved for quiet retreats but essential tools for thriving in today's fast-paced workplaces. Consider the story of Michael, a project manager at a construction firm. He was constantly running from site to site, juggling budgets, client meetings, and staff issues. He often felt overwhelmed, anxious, and on the brink of burnout. After reading Carlson's book, Michael decided to try a simple practice. Each morning before work, he spent 5 minutes sitting quietly, focusing on his breath, and setting an intention for the day. This brief pause created a calm foundation that helped him respond to stress with greater clarity and patience. Michael's colleagues noticed his improved demeanor, and he felt more in control, even when things got hectic. Carlson encourages us to build moments of quiet into our daily routines. These moments act like a mental pause button, allowing us to step back from the whirlwind of tasks and emotions. Whether it is taking 3 deep breaths before answering a difficult email, pausing for a mindful sip of water, or simply closing your eyes for a minute during a break, these small acts of presence can dramatically reduce stress. Another powerful strategy Carlson shares is the importance of setting boundaries. In the digital age, work often follows us everywhere: emails after hours, notifications on our phones, and the expectation to always be available. This blurring of lines can make it hard to disconnect and recharge. Carlson advises creating clear boundaries around work time and personal time. For instance, turning off work notifications after a certain hour or designating a quiet space for focused work helps protect your mental energy. Emily, the editor, took this advice seriously. She started setting firm limits on after-hours work emails and communicated these boundaries to her team. Initially, she worried about seeming less dedicated, but the result was quite the opposite. Her productivity during work hours improved, and her stress levels dropped. Setting boundaries helped her maintain peace, balance, and better focus. Carlson also highlights the value of taking breaks and embracing stillness during the workday. It might seem counterintuitive, but stepping away from work for a few minutes can boost creativity, improve decision-making, and enhance resilience. He suggests using breaks to stretch, take a short walk, or simply breathe deeply and reset. In one example, Rajesh, an engineer, struggled with afternoon fatigue and declining focus. Inspired by Carlson's teaching, he began scheduling short breaks every 2 hours. During these breaks, he would step outside, breathe fresh air, and briefly disconnect from screens. Over time, Rajesh noticed increased energy and sharper concentration, allowing him to accomplish more with less stress. Mindfulness, or the practice of being fully present in the moment, is another key tool Carlson recommends. It can be as simple as paying attention to your breath, noticing sensations, or bringing awareness to your thoughts and emotions without judgment. Practicing mindfulness helps prevent reactive responses and cultivates calmness even in difficult situations. Take the example of Lisa, a customer support supervisor. Her team often faced angry clients and high-pressure demands. Lisa began practicing mindfulness techniques to manage her own stress. When a challenging call came, she would pause to take a deep breath before responding, allowing her to stay calm and professional. This practice not only improved her own experience but also modeled a constructive way for her team to handle stress. Carlson reminds us that peace at work is not about controlling every external factor but about controlling our inner environment. We cannot always change deadlines, difficult personalities, or unexpected problems, but we can change how we relate to them. He writes, "It is possible to live in the world without being consumed by it. This means learning to observe your thoughts and emotions without being swept away, practicing patience, and choosing responses that align with your values." Creating peace in a busy environment also involves simplifying where possible. Multitasking, overcommitting, and chasing every urgent task create mental clutter. Carlson suggests focusing on one thing at a time, saying no to unnecessary demands, and prioritizing what truly matters. This not only reduces stress but increases the quality of work and satisfaction. In conclusion, Carlson's teachings in this part offer a roadmap for finding calm amid the storm. By slowing down, setting boundaries, taking breaks, practicing mindfulness, and simplifying, you can create a sanctuary of peace inside yourself no matter how hectic your surroundings. As you reflect on "Don't sweat the small stuff at work," ask yourself, how can I bring more presence and calm into my workday? What small habits can I adopt to protect my peace? In the next and final part, we will summarize the key lessons of the book and explore how embracing these principles can transform not only your work but your life. As we reach the end of "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work," it is important to pause and reflect on the profound wisdom Richard Carlson has shared with us. In a world where the pace of work is faster than ever and pressures seem to multiply daily, Carlson's message serves as a vital reminder that peace, perspective, and compassion are not just nice-to-haves, they are essential to thriving at work. Throughout this journey, we have learned that much of the stress and frustration we experience on the job comes not from the work itself, but from how we respond to it. By changing our perspective, we gain the power to decide which battles are worth fighting and which are not. We see that letting go of ego and the need for control is not a weakness but a strength that creates space for collaboration, growth, and peace. We discovered that focusing on what truly matters, our priorities, our well-being, and our meaningful contributions allows us to cut through the noise of endless distractions and office drama. We saw how cultivating kindness and compassion can transform difficult relationships, build stronger teams, and create a workplace culture where everyone can flourish. Carlson's teachings on creating peace within ourselves, no matter how chaotic the environment, give us practical tools to slow down, breathe, and reset. Whether it is through mindfulness, setting boundaries, or taking intentional breaks, these practices help us protect our mental and emotional energy so that we can perform at our best without burning out. Consider the story of Anita, who learned to be gentle with herself and accept imperfection, or Michael, who found calm through a simple breathing practice before the workday began, or James, who inspired his team through empathy and patience. These real-life examples remind us that transformation is possible when we apply Carlson's principles with intention and consistency. The beauty of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work lies in its simplicity and accessibility. The advice is straightforward and easy to integrate into daily life, yet the impact can be profound. It invites us to see work not as a source of endless stress but as an opportunity for growth, connection, and fulfillment. At Books Arena, we believe that books like this have the power to change lives by offering clarity and comfort in times of overwhelm. Carlson's message encourages us to pause, reflect, and choose peace even amid the deadlines, meetings, and challenges that define modern work. As you carry these lessons forward, remember that you have the ability to shape your experience at work. You cannot always control your circumstances, but you can control your attitude, your reactions, and your priorities. By embracing these principles, you create not only a more peaceful work life but also a more joyful and balanced existence. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Don't Sweat the Small Stuff at Work. May you find calm in the chaos, strength in letting go, and joy in focusing on what truly matters. This has been a presentation from Books Arena. Until next time, take care and keep growing. Welcome to Books Arena, where we bring powerful ideas from the best books into your daily life. Today, we begin exploring a book that holds the secret to achieving meaningful success in a world full of noise. Deep Work by Cal Newport. Imagine this: you are sitting in front of your computer. You have an important task to complete, perhaps a project that could define your career, or an assignment that really matters. You open your email just to quickly check, then a notification from a messaging app pops up. 5 minutes later, you are scrolling through a news website, and soon, social media swallows your attention. You come back to your work, but now your focus is broken. That flow, that rare state of deep concentration, has vanished. This is the world most people live in every day. Cal Newport, a computer science professor and productivity expert, saw this happening all around him. He noticed a pattern among high performers, from authors and scientists to CEOs and software engineers. These people had one thing in common: they protected their time and trained their minds to focus deeply on tasks that mattered. Newport calls this ability deep work, a skill that is becoming increasingly rare but also more valuable in the modern economy. Let us start with the man behind the message. Cal Newport is not your usual productivity guru. He is a professor at Georgetown University, known for writing rigorous academic papers as well as best-selling books. He is also famously not on social media. That is right, no Twitter, no Instagram, not even LinkedIn. His focus is razor sharp, and he credits that focus for much of his success. In Deep Work, he explains how anyone, whether you are a student, a manager, a writer, or an entrepreneur, can build the same kind of deep focus to thrive in any field. But why do we need this book now, more than ever? We are living in a time when distraction is not just common, it is constant. The average knowledge worker spends more than half their day checking emails or in meetings. Most people are interrupted every 3 to 5 minutes while working. The result? Shallow work. Work that is superficial, reactive, and unfocused. Newport argues that while this kind of work might keep us busy, it does not create real value. It does not lead to innovation, deep thinking, or long-term success. Think of it like this. Imagine two people sitting in a library. One is skimming articles, answering messages, and hopping between tabs. The other is reading a single book, taking notes, and thinking deeply about one subject. Who do you think will produce better results in the long run? Newport's answer is clear: the second person is practicing deep work, And that is the type of focus that builds expertise and leads to mastery. To illustrate the power of deep work, Newport gives several real-life examples. Consider Carl Jung, the legendary psychiatrist. In the 1920s, Jung built a stone tower by a lake in the Swiss countryside, a place with no electricity, no running water, and no distractions. He would retreat there to think, write, and develop his groundbreaking theories. Or think of Bill Gates, who regularly isolated himself for think weeks during his time at Microsoft, using that time to read, reflect, and make strategic decisions that shape the future of the company. These are not just interesting stories. They show how deep work is not a luxury, it is a necessity for anyone who wants to do something meaningful. In a world where most people skim, scroll, and react, those who train themselves to go deep will stand out. They will understand problems better, develop more creative solutions, and make faster progress toward their goals. However, Newport is not just saying work hard. Deep work is not about grinding for longer hours. It is about working smarter, with full attention and clarity. It is about doing less, but doing it better. And most importantly, it is about making time for the kind of work that actually moves you forward. Throughout this book, Newport outlines not just the theory behind deep work, but also practical strategies for implementing it in your life. From building daily rituals to quitting social media, from embracing boredom to draining shallow tasks from your schedule, you will learn how to build a life that supports true focus and excellence. So, as you listen to this audiobook summary on Books Arena, ask yourself, when was the last time you worked without distraction for an hour? Or even 30 minutes? When was the last time you felt fully immersed in a task, lost track of time, and came out of it feeling deeply satisfied? Deep work is not just a strategy. It is a mindset. It is a decision to value depth over noise, to choose focus over frenzy. And in the next parts of the series, we will take you step by step through the ideas, examples, and methods that will help you apply deep work in your own life. Stay tuned as we dive into part 1, deep work versus shallow work. Imagine two professionals sitting in the same office tower. One of them, let us call him Arjun, works in a quiet corner of the floor. He is a software engineer. Arjun begins his day by planning a 3-hour block of undisturbed time. No meetings, no emails, no instant messaging. During those 3 hours, he works on developing the core algorithm of a new product for his company. His mind is fully immersed. He loses all sense of time, completely absorbed in solving a complex problem. At the end of the session, he has built something new, something that only deep, focused thinking could create. Now let us look at another person in the same building. Her name is Priya. She is a project manager. Her day starts with back-to-back meetings. She checks emails during those meetings, responds to messages on her phone, and updates reports in between. She switches between tasks every few minutes. At the end of the day, her calendar is full, her inbox is cleared, and she feels exhausted. But she wonders, what did I truly achieve today? Cal Newport uses this contrast to introduce us to two very different types of work, deep work and shallow work. Deep work, as Newport defines it, is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. It is the type of work that pushes your skills to the limit. It allows you to produce at an elite level and to master complicated concepts. Deep work is writing a book chapter, designing a product, solving a mathematical problem, or conducting scientific research. It is valuable. It is rare. And it is becoming increasingly necessary. Now think about shallow work. This is the kind of work that does not require intense concentration. It can be done while half distracted. Answering emails, sitting in meetings with little contribution, browsing data without real analysis. This is shallow work. It may feel like work, but it does not bring deep value. And in most modern jobs, it is the kind of work that dominates the day. To understand why this distinction matters, consider how the economy has changed. We now live in what Newport calls the information economy. In this economy, those who succeed are the people who can quickly master hard things and produce at an elite level. These two abilities, learning and producing, both rely on deep work. A lawyer who can write airtight contracts without distraction. A coder who can build a clean, powerful application. A student who can study without reaching for the phone every 10 minutes. These people are the ones who will rise. But here is the paradox: while deep work is more valuable than ever, it is also more rare. Why? Because distraction is everywhere. Social media platforms, Messaging apps, open office plans, constant meetings, all of these pull our attention away from depth. Companies often reward visible busyness over quiet concentration. Newport calls this the culture of connectivity, where being constantly available is seen as being productive. But in reality, it is often the opposite. Let us take a real-world example from history: Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychiatrist. In the early 1920s, as his work gained recognition, Jung found the constant noise of city life distracting. He built a stone tower retreat in the Swiss countryside. There, surrounded by nature and silence, he wrote some of his most profound psychological theories. That tower was his deep work sanctuary. He understood that to create something of lasting value, he needed focused solitude. You do not need a stone tower to do deep work. But you do need to create your own version of it, a space and time free from distractions, where your mind can go deep. Another example is Bill Gates. During his time at Microsoft, he would think weeks, isolating himself in a cabin with a pile of reading materials. No internet. No calls. Just thinking. Some of Microsoft's biggest innovations came from these weeks of pure focus. Now ask yourself how much of your day is spent in deep work? And how much is lost to shallow tasks that keep you busy but not productive? Newport emphasizes that deep work is a skill, not a talent. Like playing the piano or training for a marathon, it requires practice. You must train your brain to resist distraction and to stay with a single task for longer periods. This is not easy in a world designed to fragment your attention, but it is possible and it is worth it. In the next part of this audiobook, we will explore the core idea that drives the rest of the book, the deep work hypothesis. Newport claims that the ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare and increasingly valuable in our economy. Those who cultivate this skill will thrive. Those who do not will struggle. Stay with us on Books Arena, as we continue this deep dive into deep work by Cal Newport. Part 2, the deep work hypothesis. At the heart of deep work lies one powerful idea that Cal Newport calls the deep work hypothesis. It is simple but bold: the ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare and increasingly valuable in our economy. As a result, those who cultivate the skill and make it the core of their professional life will thrive. To understand why deep work is becoming rare, picture a modern workspace. Open floor plans without privacy. Phones constantly buzzing. Emails arriving by the dozen. Colleagues dropping by without notice. Many organizations unintentionally promote what Newport calls the culture of connectivity, a belief that being constantly available and responsive is essential for doing good work. But this culture does not encourage deep thinking. Instead, it creates a workday filled with interruptions and surface-level tasks. In this setting, focus becomes a struggle, and deep work starts to disappear. Now consider why deep work is becoming more valuable than ever. In today's world, success often depends on two core skills: the ability to quickly master complex things, and the ability to produce high-quality work at an elite level. Both of these require focus, clarity, and cognitive intensity. In other words, they require deep work. Take the example of a machine learning engineer who needs to learn a new algorithm. That person must absorb challenging concepts, apply them in real time, and produce something useful. Or think of an author writing a novel, a surgeon performing a complex procedure, or a mathematician solving a previously unsolved problem. None of these tasks can be done with half your mind wandering or with constant interruptions. This is why deep work has become like a superpower. It allows people to learn faster and work better in a knowledge-based economy where value is increasingly tied to the depth of thought. J.K. Rowling is a great example of this principle. When she was writing the final Harry Potter book, she found herself constantly pulled away from her work by distractions. So she booked a suite at a luxury hotel in Edinburgh, specifically to isolate herself and focus. That environment gave her the uninterrupted mental space she needed to finish the last chapters of the series, some of the most important work of her career. Now contrast that with a writer working at a noisy cafe, constantly checking messages, or switching between browser tabs. The difference in quality, originality, and efficiency is enormous. Deep work is not just about working longer, it is about working better, in a way that few people today are truly doing. Another concept Newport introduces is what he calls attention residue. This refers to what happens in your mind when you switch from one task to another. When you move quickly from writing a report to checking a message, your focus does not transfer cleanly. A part of your brain remains stuck on the previous task. This leftover attention reduces your cognitive performance, making it harder to concentrate deeply on the next activity. You might think you are multitasking effectively, but in truth, you are weakening your ability to go deep with every switch. To make this clearer, think about a carpenter using a fine chisel on a block of wood. If that carpenter gets up every 5 minutes to answer a phone call or speak with someone, their hands may return to the tool, but their mind lags behind. Each interruption means re-entering the flow from the beginning. Precision suffers. The work takes longer and feels more exhausting. Modern professionals face the same struggle. Our digital tools make context switching easy, but that ease comes with a heavy cost, the erosion of our ability to go deep. Newport's hypothesis is not just philosophical, it has economic weight. Those who can perform deep work consistently will produce work of higher quality and at greater speed. These individuals will become rare assets in the workplace. Meanwhile, those stuck in shallow work cycles, always busy but never focused, will find themselves outpaced. This reality creates a divide in the modern economy. On one side are the deep workers, those who deliberately build their capacity for focus. On the other side are those who allow their attention to be shaped by algorithms, alerts, and endless distractions. The gap between these two groups is growing wider every year. To thrive in this landscape, one must treat deep work as a core skill. It is not enough to be available or responsive. What matters is your ability to solve hard problems, think independently, and produce valuable results consistently and efficiently. These are the qualities that employers seek, clients trust, and the market rewards. In the next part of this audiobook, we will explore the first rule Newport introduces for building a life centered around deep work: work deeply. This is where the practical journey begins: how to design your days, build rituals, and develop mental strength to support focus in a world that is fighting for your attention. Let us move forward. Part 3: Work deeply. To succeed in a world of increasing noise and decreasing attention spans, knowing that deep work is valuable is not enough. One must take deliberate, often difficult steps to make it a regular part of daily life. In this part, Cal Newport presents the first and perhaps most crucial rule: work deeply. Working deeply does not just happen. You must fight for it. The modern world is filled with traps designed to break your focus. Social media platforms are engineered to keep you scrolling. Email was created to be quick, but it has evolved into a constant stream of shallow demands. Even your workplace may unknowingly push you away from concentration with endless meetings, interruptions, and open office setups. So how does one protect and cultivate deep work? Newport offers several strategies rooted in real-life practices. Let us begin with rituals. Deep work, like physical training or meditation, thrives on routine. People often assume that deep thinkers operate in chaotic bursts of genius, but the truth is usually the opposite. High performers set up systems to make deep work automatic. Consider the daily habits of author and professor Mason Curry, who documented the routines of famous creators in his book Daily Rituals. Writers like Ernest Hemingway would rise early and write for several hours each morning. Charles Dickens would take long afternoon walks after writing all morning, letting his mind wander and reset. These routines were not just personal quirks, they were systems that protected deep focus. Newport encourages readers to build their own deep work rituals. This includes deciding where you will work deeply, such as a specific desk or location. For how long you will do it. How you will support the work, for example, by turning off devices or setting time limits, and how you will measure success, such as tracking word count, progress made, or hours spent. This intentional approach creates a psychological boundary between deep and shallow work. When you begin your deep work ritual, your brain learns that it is time to focus. Next comes the importance of embracing boredom. In a world of instant gratification, many people have lost the ability to sit quietly without reaching for their phone. But to master deep work, one must train the brain to tolerate boredom. Mental resistance to distraction is a muscle. If you constantly jump from one task to another, or switch screens every few minutes, that muscle becomes weak. Imagine trying to run a marathon without ever training your legs. In the same way, trying to do deep work without training your focus is a setup for failure. Newport recommends scheduling deep work like an athlete would schedule practice. Block off time on your calendar. Treat it as sacred. Eliminate access to distractions. If your phone is in your pocket, turn it off. If your email inbox is open, close it. Let others know that during this time, you are unavailable. The goal is to make deep work a regular habit, not something you do only when inspiration strikes. A powerful real-world example of this principle is Jack Dorsey, the co-founder of Twitter and Square. At one point, Dorsey was running both companies simultaneously. To manage such immense responsibility, he structured his week into themes. Mondays were for management, Tuesdays for product development, Wednesdays for marketing, and so on. This strict structure allowed him to focus deeply on each domain without constantly switching gears. You may not be running two companies, but the same principle applies. Structure your day. Protect blocks of time. Focus on one high-value task at a time. Another useful practice Newport describes is the concept of a shutdown ritual. At the end of each workday, take 10 to 15 minutes to review what you accomplished, plan for the next day, and make a clear decision to stop working. This reduces mental clutter and prevents your brain from constantly spinning in the background. You will rest better, and your focus will sharpen when it is time to return to work. This practice is backed by science. Studies in cognitive psychology show that when you offload uncompleted tasks onto a list or a planner, your brain stops holding onto them. You regain mental bandwidth. Newport also emphasizes that deep work is not just for elite professionals or academic scholars. Anyone who solves problems, builds things, or creates value with their mind can benefit. A high school student preparing for exams. A small business owner writing marketing content. A teacher designing a new curriculum. All of them can transform their results by making time to work deeply. But none of this will happen by accident. You must design a life that supports it. You must treat your attention as your most valuable asset. Most people do not. They give it away freely to every vibration, every notification, every browser tab. Those who do the opposite, those who protect their attention, will gain a massive advantage. Deep work is not just about doing more. It is about doing what matters most, with full focus, in less time. It is how you learn faster, think deeper, and produce results that last. In the next part, we will explore something that sounds counterintuitive but is essential for mastering deep focus. That is the need to embrace boredom. Because if you cannot be bored, you cannot go deep. Part 4, Embrace boredom. At first, it may sound strange. Why would anyone want to embrace boredom, especially in a world filled with stimulation at every turn? But Cal Newport argues that boredom is not your enemy, it is your training ground. If you want to work deeply, you must train your brain to tolerate the absence of novelty. You must practice being bored. Let us begin with a simple observation. Most people reach for their phone the moment they feel even a second of stillness. Waiting in line? Check messages. Sitting at a red light? Scroll through social media. Riding in an elevator? Open a news app. There is a constant need to be doing something, anything, to fill the silence. But this constant stimulation conditions the brain to expect novelty at all times. It becomes allergic to stillness. Now imagine what happens when that same person tries to focus on a complex task for more than 20 minutes. Their brain, trained by years of digital habits, becomes restless. It craves distraction. It is not used to sitting with difficulty, or staying on a single thought. That person may want to concentrate, but their mind will not let them. This is where boredom becomes essential. Newport explains that the ability to concentrate is a skill, and like any skill, it requires training. That training begins by rebuilding your tolerance for boredom. It means allowing your brain to sit in silence, to stay with one task even when it gets uncomfortable. Only then can you push through the resistance and reach the mental state where deep work happens. One of the core enemies of this training is what Newport calls attention switching. Each time you check your phone, respond to a message, or quickly open a new tab while working, your brain switches tasks. Even if it is just for a few seconds, the effects are deeper than they seem. Psychologists call this attention residue. After switching tasks, part of your mind remains stuck on the previous one. You may return to the main task, but your full cognitive power is not there. That residue slows down thinking, reduces performance, and breaks the flow of deep work. To overcome this, Newport suggests a powerful exercise: schedule your distractions. Instead of giving in to every impulse the moment it arises, create specific blocks of time in your day for checking email, browsing the internet, or using your phone. Outside those blocks, train yourself to stay focused. When the urge to check something arises, notice it but do not act on it. Tell yourself, I have time scheduled for that later. This approach may seem rigid, but it works. It builds discipline. It teaches your mind that it does not have to respond to every itch for stimulation. Over time, your brain becomes calmer, more focused, and better able to stay with one task for longer periods. A real-world example of this can be seen in the habits of novelist Neal Stephenson. Stephenson is known for writing long, complex books like Cryptonomicon and Anathem. He does not do book tours, rarely gives interviews, and avoids social media. Why? Because he knows that writing high-quality fiction requires long stretches of uninterrupted thought. He has chosen to limit his availability so he can dive deeper into his work. This is the kind of choice Newport encourages. It may not be possible for everyone to cut off all distractions, but anyone can start small. You can delay checking your phone for an hour. You can go for a walk without headphones. You can sit quietly with your thoughts for 10 minutes each day. These moments are like push-ups for your attention span. They build strength where it is needed most. Another method Newport suggests is practicing mindfulness. This does not have to mean meditation in a formal sense. It simply means paying attention to what you are doing without letting your mind drift. If you are washing dishes, notice the water, the sound, the rhythm. If you are walking, observe your surroundings. If you are working, stay with the task. This practice trains the mind to stay anchored, which is essential for deep work. Let us take a real-life comparison. Imagine a craftsman building a fine wooden cabinet. He does not check his phone every 5 minutes. He does not take random breaks to chat or scroll. His focus is on the grain of the wood, the alignment of the joints, the smoothness of the finish. That level of care and attention is what creates quality. The same principle applies to knowledge work. The deeper your focus, the higher your output and the more meaningful your results. By learning to embrace boredom, you are not punishing yourself. You are preparing yourself. You are building a mind that is strong enough to resist distraction and capable of creating something valuable. In the next part, we will explore one of the most controversial but liberating ideas in the book, why you should quit social media, and how doing so can actually improve not limit your productivity, creativity, and success. Part 5, Quit Social Media. Social media platforms promise connection, creativity, and even opportunity. But Cal Newport takes a very different view. In Deep Work, he argues that for most people, social media is a major source of distraction, fragmentation, and shallow thinking. His advice is clear and bold: quit social media, or at the very least, use it with deep intention. This does not mean Newport believes social media is evil. Rather, he believes that the costs are often hidden and the benefits are overstated. To truly understand his perspective, we must look at how social media shapes attention. Social platforms are designed to keep you coming back. They thrive on the attention economy, where every click, scroll, and reaction generates value not for you, but for the company behind the platform. The more time you spend on social media, the more advertisements they can show you. This is their business model. But your business, your craft, your calling, it is different. You do not earn your value by being constantly available. You earn it by producing results. That might be designing software, writing a novel, launching a product, or solving a problem. And these things require focus. To make this concrete, let us consider a graphic designer named Mira. Mira checks Instagram regularly. She follows other artists, finds inspiration, and even promotes her work there. But she notices something troubling. After scrolling for a few minutes, her energy drops. She starts comparing her work to others. She feels the urge to respond to comments, check likes, and follow trends. Hours go by each week. Her creative energy is slowly drained, not by her actual work, but by the platform she believes she needs. Newport would ask Mira to perform a simple test: what if she quit Instagram for 30 days? Would her professional life collapse? Would her creativity vanish? Or would she find more time, more clarity, and more space to do deep, original work? This is where Newport introduces what he calls the craftsman approach to tool selection. Instead of asking, could this be useful, you ask, does this tool provide significant positive value that outweighs its costs? It is not enough for a tool to offer a few benefits. It must offer benefits that clearly support your most important goals, and it must do so without draining your time or damaging your ability to concentrate. Many people use social media passively, without any strategy. They install the apps because others do. They check them by habit. Newport challenges that default. He believes that attention is too valuable to give away automatically. You should be deliberate. You should protect your cognitive space as carefully as a professional chef protects the quality of their ingredients. There are real-world examples that support Newport's argument. Take best-selling author and professor Adam Grant. He writes, teaches, and speaks at a high level. He is not on Twitter. He limits his availability. When asked why, he explains that every hour spent writing social media posts is an hour not spent crafting a meaningful book chapter or lesson. Or consider successful entrepreneurs like DHH, David Heinemeier Hansson, the creator of Ruby on Rails and co-founder of Basecamp. He has spoken openly about stepping away from social platforms to preserve his clarity and independence. By focusing deeply on his work rather than the digital noise, he has built tools and companies that have real impact. You may not be a world-famous author or programmer, but the principle still applies. Every hour spent on social media is time not spent learning a skill, finishing a project, or reflecting deeply. It is not about eliminating all entertainment or cutting off communication. It is about recognizing that your attention is a limited resource and treating it with respect. Newport also advises experimenting with a 30-day social media detox. During this period, you remove all optional digital distractions. No scrolling, no checking, no casual browsing. At the end of the month, ask yourself, what did I miss? What did I gain? Did your career fall apart, or did you gain hours of deep focus you had forgotten were even possible? Many people who try this report surprising results. They read more books. They feel less anxious. They think more clearly. Most importantly, they rediscover the mental stillness required for deep work. Of course, not everyone can quit social media completely. Some people use it professionally, to promote their work or build a brand. But even then, Newport advises extreme intentionality. If you use social media, set strict boundaries. Time box your usage. Turn off notifications. Create, post, and log off. Do not live on the platform. It all comes down to this: social media may offer small benefits, but it comes at the cost of your deepest mental clarity. And in a world where focus is rare, protecting that clarity is a competitive edge. In the next part, we will explore how to deal with the other half of the problem: shallow work. Even if you quit social media and block out distractions, shallow work will still try to creep into your schedule. The solution? You must learn how to drain the shallows. Part 6, Drain the Shallows. After eliminating distractions and reducing digital noise, there is still one major obstacle that stands between you and deep work: shallow work. These are tasks that feel productive but rarely move the needle in any significant way. They consume time, fragment attention, and leave you exhausted without offering real value. In this part of the book, Cal Newport emphasizes the importance of draining the shallows, which means minimizing low-value tasks and making space for focused, meaningful work. Let us begin with understanding what shallow work looks like. These are tasks that are non-cognitively demanding, easy to replicate, and often performed while distracted. They include things like replying to emails, attending status meetings, writing reports no one reads, or updating spreadsheets. While these activities may be necessary to some extent, Newport argues that they should not dominate your workday. Consider the case of Ravi, a mid-level manager at a marketing firm. His calendar is packed with meetings. He spends hours responding to emails. Most of his day is spent juggling requests, handling minor issues, or giving approvals. Yet, at the end of the week, he often feels like he has accomplished nothing of real importance. He is constantly busy but rarely effective. This is the danger of shallow work. It gives the illusion of progress while preventing deep, valuable contributions. And the more shallow work fills your day, the less time and energy you have left for tasks that truly matter: creating strategies, solving complex problems, building something innovative. Newport suggests a powerful strategy to combat this: schedule every minute of your day. This might sound excessive at first, but it is actually a simple way to reclaim control over your time. You divide your work hours into blocks and assign each block a specific activity. The goal is not to lock yourself into a rigid system but to force yourself to think deliberately about how you spend your time. Let us take a real-world example. Jack Dorsey, co-founder of Twitter and Square, is known for managing two major companies at the same time. He does this by theme-based scheduling. Mondays are for management, Tuesdays for product development, Wednesdays for marketing, and so on. This structure reduces context switching and ensures that his attention is aligned with clear priorities. While most people do not run two companies, the principle applies universally: structured time is productive time. Newport also emphasizes that to drain the shallows, you must learn to say no often and without guilt. Shallow work thrives on your availability. It arrives in the form of quick requests, unplanned meetings, and vague expectations. If you are not careful, your day becomes a reaction to other people's priorities. By learning to say no to tasks that do not serve your goals, you protect your time for the deep work that does. For example, if someone asks you to attend a meeting with no clear agenda, you might respond by asking for clarification on your role and whether your presence is truly necessary. Often, this simple question either removes you from the meeting or prompts others to clarify and improve the meeting's purpose. In either case, your time is preserved. Another practical tool Newport suggests is identifying and reducing the shallow work that is unavoidable. Start by auditing your current tasks. List all your regular work activities and estimate how much time each one requires weekly. Then, classify each as deep or shallow. You may be surprised to find that shallow tasks dominate your schedule. Once you see this clearly, you can begin adjusting. One effective method is time blocking your deep work sessions first and fitting shallow work around them, not the other way around. If you treat your deep work like a non-negotiable appointment, it becomes protected time. You are less likely to sacrifice it for a last-minute email or an unscheduled meeting. Newport also introduces the concept of a shallow work budget. This is the maximum number of hours per week you will allow for low-value tasks. For instance, you might decide that no more than 30% of your time can be spent on shallow work. This forces you to be selective and efficient. It creates pressure to automate, delegate, or eliminate tasks that do not align with your most important objectives. One real-world comparison comes from the world of academia. Professors are expected to teach, attend committees, and respond to administrative tasks. But the most successful academics set strict boundaries. They block out large portions of time for research and writing, and they guard those blocks fiercely. This discipline often results in breakthrough publications and lasting impact outcomes that are only possible through deep work. Let us return to the story of Ravi, the marketing manager. After learning about shallow work, he starts restructuring his day. He blocks out 2 hours each morning for strategy planning and campaign development, his most cognitively demanding tasks. He moves meetings to the afternoon. He sets email checks to only twice per day. Within a few weeks, Ravi sees a noticeable improvement. He feels less overwhelmed and more fulfilled. His ideas are sharper, and his team notices the difference. This is the power of draining the shallows. It is not about eliminating every minor task. It is about recognizing which activities produce real results and building your schedule around them. When you focus your time on work that matters, your performance improves, your stress decreases, and your sense of purpose deepens. In the next and final part, we will tie everything together by understanding what it truly means to embrace a philosophy of deep work in your life and career. We will see how to build systems and habits that support long-term focus, creativity, and excellence. Part 7, The Deep Life. Everything Cal Newport teaches in Deep Work points toward a bigger, more powerful idea, what he calls the deep life. This is not just about changing how you work. It is about transforming how you live. The deep life is one centered around focus, purpose, craftsmanship, and meaning. It is a life where attention is not scattered but directed, not hijacked but mastered. To understand what the deep life looks like, imagine a person like Sarah, a software developer in her early 30s. In the past, she used to work long hours, always chasing deadlines, constantly distracted by Slack messages, emails, and endless notifications. Her workday would blend into her evenings. Weekends were often spent catching up on tasks. She felt tired, anxious, and uncertain if she was making any meaningful progress. Then, inspired by the ideas in Deep Work, Sarah made deliberate changes. She redesigned her schedule around deep work sessions. She eliminated unnecessary meetings. She began each day with a clear plan. She stopped using her phone in the first hour of the morning and during her deep work blocks. Slowly, she began to feel a shift. Her mind was sharper. Her work was more creative. And for the first time in years, she began to feel proud of what she was building. This is what the deep life looks like. It is not just about productivity. It is about living with intention. Cal Newport makes it clear that deep work is not something you sprinkle into a busy day like a side dish. It is the main course. And building a life around deep work requires more than tips and tricks. It requires adopting a philosophy of depth, the belief that the best things in life come from focused effort and sustained attention. One major principle of the deep life is ritual and routine. You must create systems that protect your focus. This might include setting up a specific workspace, blocking off deep work hours every morning, or creating shutdown rituals that mark the end of your workday. These small habits help reduce decision fatigue and protect your cognitive energy. Real-world high performers often live by these rituals. Take authors like Haruki Murakami. He follows the same schedule every day, wakes at 4 in the morning, writes for 5 hours, runs, reads, and then goes to bed early. His routine is not glamorous, but it allows for deep, uninterrupted creation. This kind of discipline is what makes consistent brilliance possible. Another core aspect of the deep life is meaningful leisure. Newport argues that after deep work, the best way to recover is not mindless screen time but high-quality downtime, spending time with family, pursuing hobbies, reading, or engaging in physical activities. These experiences recharge the mind and reinforce a well-rounded life. Let us consider Rahul, a startup founder. His days are packed with decisions, coding sessions, and strategy meetings. After reading deep work, he replaces his evening scrolling sessions with guitar practice. What started as a small experiment becomes a major source of joy and renewal. He finds that practicing an instrument helps him disconnect, restore energy, and return to work with more clarity. The deep life also involves limiting the shallow by default. This means setting rules to prevent shallow tasks from taking over your time. For example, checking email only at certain times, turning off all notifications, or even choosing not to have a smartphone. These rules may seem extreme to some, but for those who value depth, they are necessary boundaries. Newport reminds us that choosing a deep life often means going against the grain. Society celebrates speed, connectivity, and busyness. The deep life requires slowness, solitude, and sustained attention, traits that are often undervalued. But those who embrace depth often rise above the noise. They become the rare individuals who build things that matter. We can see this in people like J.K. Rowling, who wrote much of Harry Potter in cafes without Wi-Fi. Or in artists like Georgia O'Keeffe, who lived in remote desert solitude to protect her inspiration. These individuals knew that great work comes from going deep and that depth requires sacrifice. Newport also explains that the deep life is not just for artists or intellectuals. It is for anyone who wants to live with focus and fulfillment. Whether you are a teacher, a designer, a doctor, or a student, you can shape your life around what matters most. You can build routines that support depth. You can reduce distractions, protect your attention, and create something meaningful. But perhaps the most important takeaway is this: depth is a skill. And like any skill, it improves with practice. The more you build your capacity for focus, the more naturally it will come. At first, deep work feels hard. You may feel restless or bored. But over time, your mind adapts. You begin to crave silence. You start producing better work in less time. You feel calmer, clearer, more purposeful. In a world full of noise, choosing the deep life is a radical act. It is a statement that you value quality over quantity, substance over surface, intention over impulse. It is a path that not only makes you more productive, but also more human. As we conclude this journey through deep work, let us remember this: your attention is your life. Where you place it, what you give it to, that is what grows. If you protect it, nurture it, and focus it on meaningful goals, you can build a life not just of success but of depth. You have just completed a deep dive into Deep Work by Cal Newport, a book that is not only a guide to focused productivity but a manifesto for living with intention. In a world that constantly pulls our attention in every direction, Newport gives us a roadmap back to clarity, purpose, and excellence. The message is simple but powerful: distraction is easy, but depth is rare and therefore valuable. If you want to stand out, to create something meaningful, to truly master your craft, you must go deep. This does not require a genius mind or endless hours. It requires commitment, structure, and the courage to step away from noise and into focus. We hope this audiobook summary has helped you understand not just how to practice deep work, but why it matters. At Books Arena, we bring you the best books with practical insights and real-world relevance so you can apply these lessons today, not someday. If you found value in this, make sure to check out our other summaries, and remember, the best work you will ever do will come from the deepest part of your attention. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and stay deep. Summary of Deep Work. Here is a quick recap of the major parts we have covered. Part 1, the deep work hypothesis. We explored how deep work creates value, improves skill, and leads to fulfillment, while shallow work holds us back in a distracted digital world. Part 2, the rules for deep work. Cal Newport introduced 4 powerful rules: work deeply, embrace boredom, quit social media, and drain the shallows. These principles are the backbone of a focused life. Part 3, work deeply. This section shared real-world strategies to build rituals, routines, and environments that support concentration and eliminate distractions. Part 4, embrace boredom. We learned that resisting the urge for constant stimulation strengthens focus. Training your mind to be okay with boredom builds mental toughness. Part 5, quit social media. Newport challenges us to rethink the value of digital tools. If something distracts more than it helps, it may not be worth your time. Part 6, drain the shallows. We discussed how to reduce low-value tasks through scheduling, time blocking, and saying no, so more of your time is spent on high-impact work. Part 7, the deep life. Finally, we looked at how deep work can become the foundation of a rich, meaningful life. A life not driven by distraction, but by deliberate, focused living.